The water was still running at 9:06 that morning. 5 children, ages 7 years down to 6 months, lay in 85-degree bathwater. Their mother had called 911 herself, voice calm, almost detached. Andrea Yates drowned all 5 of her children, and her husband never saw it coming. But the warning signs were there for years, buried in hospital records and a 45-day gap in the one drug holding her mind together. Andrea Yates's descent into psychosis was mapped in hospital charts long before the morning her children died. In 1999, a 12-day admission at Memorial Hermann Psychiatric Center followed a suicide attempt. The nursing note from that stay reads, "High risk of self-harm, requires 24-hour observation. Blood work from the same week showed a lithium level of 0.45 milliequivalents per liter, well below the therapeutic range for mood stabilization." She was discharged against medical advice, her family opting for prayer over medication. The record warned, "Do not leave her unsupervised with the children." After each birth, symptoms sharpened. Auditory hallucinations, delusional guilt, and episodes of catatonia appeared in progress notes from Houston General and Baylor. Outpatient logs from 2000 and 2001 show a pattern: sertraline and haloperidol prescribed, then abandoned. Pharmacy records reveal gaps, sometimes 3 weeks at a time, where no antipsychotic was picked up. A missed refill in March 2000 coincided with Andrea's withdrawal into silence and religious isolation. By May 2001, pill counts showed she was taking less than 2/3 of her prescribed doses. Her journals, entered as evidence at trial, describe voices growing louder. Her journal entries read, "I must end it all," written in 1999, and "The devil is in the house." Psychiatric evaluations documented command hallucinations instructing her to harm the children. Each time, the discharge plan called for close supervision and strict adherence to medication. Each time, the warning faded as days passed and routines returned. In the final weeks, the records become a blur of missed appointments and unreturned calls. A scheduled home health visit was canceled. A discharge summary from Clear Lake Medical Center, stamped with the warning high risk of self-harm, was never faxed to her outpatient psychiatrist. The system marked her as dangerous, then let her slip through. The medical evidence was there, a mind unraveling, a risk declared in black and white, and a series of interventions that never truly arrived. On June 5, 2001, Andrea Yates missed a psychiatric appointment meant to review her medication and mental state. The Harris County Mental Health Center marked her as a no-show, but no one reached out to reschedule. That same week, pharmacy records revealed a 45-day gap in haloperidol refills, an antipsychotic Andrea was prescribed to take daily. Her prescription had expired on May 28th, and no refill was requested until July. No provider, pharmacist, or family member intervened during this lapse. A home health nurse visit scheduled for May 28th was canceled by the agency due to staffing shortages and never rescheduled. Agency paperwork later reviewed in court showed Andrea's name left blank for that week. The nurse's role would have included assessing Andrea's ability to care for her children and checking her medication compliance. Without this visit, no professional entered the home to observe Andrea's worsening condition. On June 1st, 2001, Andrea was discharged from Clear Lake Medical Center after a brief psychiatric stay. The discharge summary warned of a high risk of self-harm and recommended an involuntary hold. The hospital intended to fax this summary to her outpatient psychiatrist, but fax logs later confirmed the transmission never occurred. The outpatient provider received no update or warning about Andrea's recent crisis. Rusty Yates, Andrea's husband, was present for some decisions and absent for others. He continued working full-time, leaving Andrea alone with the children, despite repeated warnings from doctors and nurses that she should not be unsupervised. correspondence with clergy and clinicians later entered into evidence, showed Rusty's faith in prayer over medication and a belief that spiritual healing would suffice. Letters from the family's pastor to Andrea's psychiatrist referenced God's plan and hope for relief. Rusty's own statements reflected doubts about medication and reluctance to enforce supervision. By June 20th, 2001, every safeguard had failed. Missed appointments, canceled visits, pharmacy gaps, and lost warnings left Andrea alone with her children. The system's final barriers had quietly disappeared. At 9:06 a.m. on June 20th, 2001, Officers Cunningham and Parker stepped into the Yates home on Beachcomber Lane. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the sound of water running echoed down the hallway, a detail that would later become central to the investigation. They moved quickly, following the noise to the bathroom. The tub was still filling, its surface broken only by the pale limbs of 5 small bodies, submerged and unmoving. The officers described the air as thick and humid. The water temperature later measured at 85 degrees Fahrenheit by Dr. Luis Sanchez, the Harris County medical examiner. No signs of a struggle, no defensive wounds, just the quiet, clinical evidence of what had taken place. A few minutes later, at 9:09 a.m., Rusty Yates arrived. He had left work after receiving a call from Andrea. The police report notes his collapse in the hallway, his voice rising into a wordless scream. He was separated from the scene almost immediately, led to a side room as protocol demanded. Officers began clearing the house, checking for any other survivors, but the only sounds were the water and the faint hum of the air conditioner. Dr. Luis Sanchez began his on-scene assessment at 9:12 a.m. He took the water's temperature, noted the absence of bruising or restraint marks, and recorded the body positions. Each child was lifted from the tub in turn: Noah, John, Paul, Luke, and infant Mary, placed on towels for preliminary examination. The extraction was methodical and silent, overseen by the fire department's technical rescue team and documented in photographs for later review. By 9:35 a.m., the evidence team had collected water samples and videotaped the bathroom from multiple angles. Every detail was logged: the faucet position, the depth of the water, the arrangement of towels and clothing on the floor. At 10 a.m., crime scene investigators sealed the house. The children's bodies were transferred to the coroner's van one by one, each in a separate bag. Rusty was escorted to an interview room where he gave a written statement describing the moment he realized what had happened. The incident log, stamped with the time of each action, would become a timeline for prosecutors and defense alike. By 11 a.m., the house was empty, the investigation shifting from the physical evidence to the question of how so many warning signs had failed to prevent what happened inside that bathroom. The Harris County courtroom became a battleground over the meaning of insanity. District Attorney Pat Miller presented the case as a matter of cold intent. He called Dr. Park Dietz, a nationally recognized forensic psychiatrist, to the stand. Dietz described Andrea Yates as methodical and purposeful, pointing to the sequence of the drownings, the 911 call, and her calm confession. Dietz told the jury that this was not the act of a woman out of touch with reality. Dietz's testimony was punctuated by a controversial moment. He referenced an episode of Law and Order that he claimed depicted a mother who drowned her children and was acquitted by reason of insanity. The implication was clear: do not be fooled by psychiatric labels. But the episode never existed. On cross-examination, defense attorney John Alger pressed Dietz on the clinical record. Dr. Robert Baker, the defense's own expert, laid out Andrea's psychiatric history, including 5 hospitalizations, suicide attempts, command hallucinations, and a documented diagnosis of postpartum psychosis. Baker read from the medical files notations of delusions, warnings of high risk, and missed doses of antipsychotics. He argued that Andrea's mind was fractured, her actions driven by voices and beliefs she could not resist. The legal question was not whether she killed her children, but whether she understood that it was wrong. The jury instructions were strict, to find Andrea not guilty by reason of insanity. The jurors had to believe she was unable to know right from wrong because of a severe mental disease. 4 hours of deliberation ended with a guilty verdict in 2002. Andrea Yates was sentenced to life in prison, but the battle was not over. In 2005, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals overturned the conviction, citing the false testimony about the television episode and improper jury instructions. At retrial in 2006, the defense returned with a clearer focus on Andrea's psychosis. 10 hours of deliberation produced a new verdict, not guilty by reason of insanity. Andrea was committed to Kerrville State Hospital, and the case became a national touchstone for the limits of expert testimony and the weight of mental illness in the eyes of the law. Today, maternal mental illness still slips through the cracks, despite clear warning signs and repeated tragedies. About 1 in 8 American mothers faces postpartum depression each year, and silence and stigma remain deadly. The cost is not measured in headlines, it is measured in lives. Let me know your thoughts below.